You lock your doors. You trust your friends. You think you're safe. But what if one night, everything you thought was normal turns into a nightmare? These are 10 terrifying real-life stories. From creepy strangers and stalkers to near-death encounters that will make you question your reality. Are you ready to face what hides in the dark? Story 1, The Changing Room Horror. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when Emily Turner, a 27-year-old marketing specialist from Manchester, walked into the city gym like she always did. For the past few months, she had committed herself to a strict post-lockdown fitness routine. Swimming had become her escape, a mental and physical reset. That day, she met 3 of her usual gym friends, Sophie, Natalie, and Claire, all in their late 20s. Together, they entered the women's changing room, chatting and laughing, ready for their usual evening laps. The room smelled of chlorine and deodorant. The sound of dripping water echoed softly. An elderly woman, perhaps in her 70s, was at the far end of the room, drying her hair slowly. None of them had seen her before. As the women began changing, a sudden unsettling sound echoed from the hallway, a bang followed by muffled shouting. Everyone froze. The laughter stopped. Emily, half-dressed, glanced toward the open entrance. "What the hell was that?" whispered Sophie. Before anyone could answer, a figure burst into the women's changing room. He was wild, a tall, gaunt man with bloodshot eyes and scratches all over his arms. His matted hair stuck to his forehead. He wore filthy, sweat-soaked clothes, including a pair of small torn blue shorts and a white sleeveless shirt stained with something dark, maybe dirt, maybe blood. But what made them all scream wasn't his appearance. It was the rusted machete he held in his right hand. His eyes locked with Emily's. She felt paralyzed. Time seemed to freeze. He let out a guttural, animalistic scream, a sound so raw and unnatural it sent shivers down everyone's spine. He took a step forward, raising the machete slightly. Emily stumbled back, crashing against a row of lockers. Claire grabbed Natalie's arm. Sophie ducked behind a bench, and the elderly woman gasped and covered her mouth. Then, bang! The door burst open again. 3 armed officers stormed in, shouting, "Drop the weapon! Get on the ground!" The man didn't listen. He charged forward. As he ran, he shoved the elderly woman into one of the cops and bolted into the shower area, out toward the pool. Screams erupted from swimmers outside. The officers gave chase. Emily and her friends were left in stunned silence. The entire room had turned into chaos and disbelief. None of them dared to move. Moments later, a single gunshot rang out from the pool side. Then silence. A minute passed. Then 2. Finally, an officer returned and informed them it was safe to come out. Emily dressed in silence. Her hands trembled as she zipped her hoodie. She couldn't speak. No one could. As they walked to the front desk, Emily caught a final glimpse. The man, now cuffed and surrounded by police, being shoved into the back of a patrol car. He looked nothing like a person anymore. He looked like a warning. Story 2. The Man Under the Car. It was a chilly Friday night in late October. Daniel had just dropped off his younger cousin, Jake, after the usual football game and post-match burgers. This had become their little tradition. He always made sure to wait in his car until his cousin got inside safely, a habit his parents had drilled into him since high school. Jake lived in a quiet, dimly lit suburb. The only sound in the neighborhood was the hum of the street lamp above. As Jake gathered his things, Daniel casually glanced toward his aunt's driveway and froze. There, half concealed beneath the parked sedan, 2 feet were sticking out from under the front bumper, facing away from the engine, like someone had crawled headfirst toward the back of the car. Daniel's blood ran cold. His uncle? It couldn't be. His uncle always worked on cars in the garage, never in the driveway, and certainly not at night. "Jake," he said sharply, locking the doors. "Is your dad home?" Jake, already halfway out the car, paused and looked. His eyes widened in terror. That's not my dad." Daniel yanked him back into the car and pulled across the street to get a better view, while Jake called his father. As the call rang, Daniel flashed his high beams at the figure under the car. No movement, no flinch, just 2 muddy boots sticking out. The rest of the body swallowed by darkness. Suddenly the legs twitched. 1 foot shifted. Then, slowly, deliberately. The figure began crawling backward, the boots scraping against the concrete. Daniel could now make out fingernails, filthy and long, clawing at the ground. The man didn't scurry. He slid, like he had no weight. The face that emerged was not familiar. Pale, sunken eyes stared at the car. Greasy hair clung to his temples. He was muttering something, but Daniel couldn't hear it through the voice. Then the man smiled. Not a grin, a wide, deranged, broken-tooth smile. He stood up, his head cocked unnaturally to one side, and began walking toward the car, dragging a long wrench in one hand. Daniel didn't wait. He reversed, tires screeching, heart thudding, so loud it drowned Jake's panicked voice. They drove straight to Jake's house, burst in through the front door, and locked every window. Later that night, Jake's father confirmed no one should have been under the car. They checked the security footage from a neighbor's doorbell cam. It caught the man arriving on foot, crouching beside the car, and then sliding under it, like he had done it 100 times before. The police were called. No one found. To this day, Daniel never drops anyone off without doing a full scan of their surroundings. And every time he sees a parked car on a dark street, he can't help but wonder what's hiding underneath. Story 3. The Host Family. Emma had never traveled alone before. This was her first time outside of Germany, taking part in a European school exchange program. Each week, she and her classmates would stay with a new host family in a different city. The first 2 weeks had been incredible. Warm families, fun cultural experiences, cozy meals. But everything changed when they arrived in the third city. Emma and her friend Leah were picked up by a man named John. He was tall, bony, and had a cold, unreadable face. He didn't smile. When they greeted him politely, he didn't respond, just said, "Let's go," and started walking to his car. The drive was silent and tense. When they arrived at the house, Emma noticed it was dark inside, too quiet. As soon as they stepped in, John didn't even let them settle. He began listing rules in a harsh tone. Take off your shoes. Don't touch anything. Don't speak your native language here. This is an English-speaking house. Then he pointed upstairs and left. No tour, no introduction. They had to carry their bags up the narrow, creaking wooden stairs without knowing where to go. Their room was small, dimly lit, and windowless. Emma felt an uneasy chill settle in her bones, but told herself it was just nerves. At dinner, John and his 2 daughters sat with them. When Emma mentioned she was vegetarian, John smirked. "So you're one of those," he said mockingly. Then he placed a tiny bowl of lettuce in front of her, 5 small leaves, nothing else. From that moment on, everything got weirder. John was always lurking. They could hear his heavy footsteps outside their door at night. Sometimes he would stop and just stand there, breathing, listening, watching through the thin crack beneath the door. One night, Emma woke up suddenly. There was light under the door and a shadow blocking it. Someone was standing there, not moving. The doorknob twitched ever so slightly, then again, as if someone was trying to open it very slowly. Emma held her breath. So did Leah. The knob didn't turn all the way, and eventually the shadow disappeared. They didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, they reported everything to their school coordinators. The stay was cut short, and they were moved to a new family. Later, Emma learned something chilling. John had been reported years ago for suspicious behavior toward teenage girls staying at his home. Nothing was ever proven, so the case was dropped. But the warning signs were there. For Emma, the experience wasn't just frightening, it was a wake-up call. Sometimes behind a calm, quiet face, darkness hides in plain sight. Story 4. The Bus Stop. It was just past midnight when Olivia finally finished her shift. The hospital had been unusually chaotic. Back-to-back patients, an equipment failure, and a short-staffed ER. She was exhausted to the bone. Her legs ached, and her mind was foggy. But she didn't drive to work that day, so she waited for the late bus home, standing under a flickering street lamp at the edge of town. The bus stop was quiet, cold. The roads were empty, and the only sound was the hum of a vending machine nearby and the occasional rustling of leaves. Olivia clutched her jacket tighter, glancing at the digital sign above the bench. Next bus, 12:26 a.m. She checked her phone. 12:15, just 11 minutes. Then she noticed something unsettling. Across the street, under the shadows of a closed bookstore, stood a man. He wasn't doing anything, just standing, watching. He was wearing a hooded sweatshirt and jeans. At first, Olivia thought he was waiting for someone, but 5 minutes passed, and he never moved. 12:20, the man was still there. His face was hidden by the shadow of his hood, but Olivia could feel his eyes on her. She looked away, pretending not to notice, but her heart was racing. She subtly moved closer to the bus sign, pretending to read it again. Suddenly, the man took one step forward, then another. He began to cross the street slowly, deliberately, not hurried, not nervous, like he knew exactly what he was doing. Olivia's instinct screamed. She fumbled for her phone, pretending to make a call. "Hi, yeah, I'm just waiting at the bus stop." "You're 5 minutes away? Great." It was a bluff, but she said it loudly. The man paused. He was now just a few meters away, still silent. Then he smiled, a twisted, knowing smile. "Waiting alone this late?" he asked, his voice soft but threatening. "Not very smart, love." Before she could respond, headlights appeared down the street. The bus was finally coming. The man looked behind him, then turned and slowly walked away, disappearing into the darkness. When Olivia got on the bus, she told the driver what happened. He nodded grimly. "You're not the first. A few women have said the same thing. We reported it, but he never stays long enough for police to catch him." That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She kept hearing his voice, soft and chilling. "Not very smart, love." She still takes the bus, but never alone. Not after that night. Because sometimes it's not the dark you should fear. It's who's watching from within it. Story 5. The Elevator. It was supposed to be a normal night. Emilia had just returned from an evening class at the university. The campus was still buzzing with students, but her apartment building, just a 10-minute tram ride away, was quiet as always. She lived on the 9th floor of a modern high-rise, the kind with cold lighting and a sleek, impersonal feel. She stepped into the building, her footsteps echoing slightly in the tiled lobby. The elevator was waiting, doors already open as if expecting her. Emilia stepped inside and pressed 9. Just as the doors began to close, a man slipped in. He was tall, maybe in his mid-30s, wearing a gray coat and carrying a small bag. Emilia didn't recognize him, but didn't think much of it. People moved in and out of the building all the time. Maybe he was visiting someone. They stood in silence. The elevator climbed. Floor 3, floor 4. Then the lights flickered. Just a quick blink, but enough to make both of them glance at the ceiling. Emilia smiled nervously. "Old building," she muttered. The man didn't smile back. He just stared at her. His eyes were sharp, calculating. Floor 5. The lights flickered again, longer this time. Then the elevator jerked and stopped. Total silence. Then darkness. The emergency lights kicked in, dim, red, eerie. Emilia pressed the door open button. Nothing. She pressed the alarm. It buzzed, but no voice came through. The man just stood there, still, watching her. "Is your phone working?" Emilia asked, trying to stay calm. "No signal," he replied flatly. "We're stuck." She nodded and turned away, pulling out her own phone. 1 bar, no internet. She texted her roommate anyway. "Stuck in the elevator with some guy, pulse check." The message didn't send. Floor 5. They were trapped. Then, slowly, the man reached into his coat pocket. Emilia's heart slammed against her ribs. She didn't know why, but something in her gut screamed danger. Her hand hovered near the emergency button again, but he just pulled out a granola bar. "Hungry?" he said, smiling. Relief washed over her, but only for a second, because the smile didn't reach his eyes. It was practiced, artificial. He wasn't offering her food. He was watching her react. Minutes passed, then more. It felt like hours. The silence grew heavier. He never took his eyes off her. Emilia stood in the farthest corner she could, her heart pounding, her back against the wall. Finally, with a sudden jerk, the elevator came to life. The lights brightened. The doors opened on floor 9. She didn't. Wait, Emilia bolted out, running down the hallway, fumbling with her keys. She didn't look back. until she was safely inside her apartment with the door locked behind her. She pressed her forehead against the door. Her phone buzzed. Delivery failed. To this day, she doesn't know who that man was. No one else in the building had visitors. That night, the security cameras showed her entering the elevator, but no one else. Story 6. The Red Raincoat. It started with a knock. Not a loud, panicked one, just a knock. 3 slow taps on her front door. Julia had just gotten home after a 12-hour night shift. The hospital had been chaos. Flu season in, full swing, short on staff, and full of patients coughing into masks. She was exhausted. Her scrubs were still on, her hair pulled messily into a bun. She wasn't expecting anyone. No deliveries, no neighbors. It was 6:17 a.m., still dark outside. She froze in the hallway, keys still in her hand. Knock, knock, knock. Again. This time she noticed something else. Silence. No birds, no wind. Even her neighbor's dog wasn't barking, just stillness. She peeked through the peephole and saw a red raincoat. The hood was up, hiding the person's face completely. They were standing still, too still, like a statue placed directly in front of her door. No shifting, no signs of breath, just there. Julia's apartment was on the 2nd floor. She had a private entrance, a narrow stairway leading from the street to her door. Anyone standing up there would have had to climb those stairs. She didn't open the door. Instead, she quietly stepped back and reached for her phone. No signal. She moved toward the window, trying to get better reception. Knock, knock, knock. It was slower this time, almost patient. She looked through the window, but couldn't see the stairwell from that angle. The fog had thickened outside. Her breath caught in her throat, and then she heard the voice. Not shouting, not angry, just soft. A whisper. Julia. I know you're in there. Her blood ran cold. No one should know her name. She stepped back, heart thundering in her chest. Her bedroom window faced the backyard, which connected to a small alley. If she had to, she could run. But she was barefoot, tired, and terrified. She stayed quiet. Then silence again. No more knocks. No more whispers. Minutes passed. She finally looked through the peephole again. The red raincoat was gone. Just vanished. Shaking, she waited another 10 minutes before calling the police. The dispatcher told her they'd send a car to check the area. No one was found. No footprints. Nothing on the doorbell cam either. It glitched at the exact time of the knocking. She tried to sleep but couldn't. And now, weeks later, she keeps seeing flashes of red in the corners of her vision. In store windows, across the street, on park benches, always still, always watching, and always gone when she turns to look. Story 7. The Man in the Vending Room. It was just supposed to be a late study night. Elena had been working on her final thesis in the campus library. It was already past 10:30 p.m., and the building was nearly empty, just a few scattered students, and the tired librarian at the front desk. She packed up her things, wrapped her scarf tightly around her neck, and headed toward the side exit near the vending machines to avoid the long walk around the main hall. She'd done this 100 times before, but that night felt different. The hallway lights flickered slightly, not unusual for an old university building, but unsettling at that hour. The vending machine room was just a small space with tile floors, buzzing lights, and 2 old machines, one for snacks, one for drinks. She stepped in, inserted a coin, and pressed the button for water. As she waited for the bottle to drop, she glanced at the glass door behind her. That's when she saw him, a man, standing just outside the door. Not moving, not blinking. His face was partially obscured by the doorframe's shadow, but what she could see was wrong. His eyes looked too wide, unblinking, his mouth slightly open, his head tilted to one side, like a child watching something with curiosity. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Maybe he was just another student? But something told her, no, he wasn't carrying a backpack. He wasn't dressed for class. His clothes looked mismatched. A torn jacket, dirty sneakers, and he was standing far too still. She quickly grabbed the bottle of water and turned to leave. That's when she heard the door handle rattle. He was trying to get in. She stepped back. The door was supposed to be locked from the outside. Only students with ID cards could access the vending room at night, but she didn't trust that it would hold. She looked around. There was no other exit. Just a tiny room with glass walls. The man leaned forward, pressing his face against the glass, fogging it up with his breath. His lips started to move. No sound, just mouthing words. Elena squinted, trying to read them. He mouthed, "Let me in, Elena." Her blood went cold. She had never seen him before in her life. She dropped her water bottle and backed into the corner. Then the lights flickered and went out. Complete darkness. Her hands fumbled for her phone. She turned on the flashlight and pointed it at the door. The man was gone. Not just out of sight, gone. She waited a few minutes before slowly stepping out into the hallway, her legs trembling. The halls were empty, silent. She ran out of the building and didn't stop until she was back at her dorm. The university's security reviewed the camera footage. There was no one in the hallway outside the vending machine room that night. But when Elena zoomed in on one frame, just before the lights went out, you can clearly see a face pressed against the glass, and he was definitely looking at her. Story 8. The Dorm Visitor. Sophie had always loved living on campus. Her dorm was in an older building, quaint, with creaky floorboards, ivy-covered walls, and high ceilings. It had character. And despite some stories of weird noises or lights flickering at night, she never felt unsafe. That changed one Thursday evening. It was around 1:30 a.m. when Sophie woke up to the sound of a soft knock on her door. 3 soft taps, tap, tap, tap. She sat up confused. Her roommate Marie had gone home for the weekend, and Sophie wasn't expecting anyone. She checked her phone. No messages. Another knock. Tap, tap, tap. "Who is it?" she called out, trying to sound firm. No response. Sophie crept up to the door and looked through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Weirded out, she locked the deadbolt. Again, crawled back into bed, and scrolled through her phone to distract herself. She must have fallen asleep, because the next thing she knew, it was 3:12 a.m., and someone was knocking again. This time it was louder. Tap, 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 tap. Her heart started to race. She grabbed her phone and flicked on the flashlight. Again, she approached the door, slowly. Her hands were shaking. She peeked through the peephole. Someone was standing there now. Not facing her door, but standing sideways, head bowed, arms hanging limp by their sides. She couldn't see their face. Just long, dark hair and a strange stiffness in the posture, like they were in a trance. Sophie whispered, "Hello?" Suddenly the person snapped their head toward the peephole, as if they had heard her whisper through the door. She jumped back. The flashlight dropped from her hand and rolled under the bed. She held her breath. The knocking stopped. For 5 long minutes, silence, then soft footsteps, slowly walking down the hallway. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, she told the dorm supervisor, they checked the hallway CCTV camera. At exactly 3:12 a.m., a woman in a white hoodie walked up to Sophie's door. But what scared Sophie most wasn't her face. It was what she was doing before knocking. The footage showed her standing still outside Sophie's door for over 40 minutes, just staring at it. She never knocked the first time at 1:30 a.m. That must have been someone else. But no one else showed up on the footage. Only the woman in the hoodie. And when the security guard tried to zoom in on her face, it was just a blurry void. Like the camera couldn't focus on her, as if she didn't want to be seen. Story 9. The Bus Stop Stranger. It was a rainy autumn night in Oslo, and Clara had just missed her usual bus home from work. It was late, 11:47 p.m., to be exact, and the next bus wasn't coming for another 25 minutes. The street was almost completely empty. Streetlights buzzed dimly. Cold wind brushed against her soaked coat. As she stood under the shelter, she pulled out her phone to scroll and pass the time, but the battery was at 3%. The screen dimmed, then blacked out completely. She sighed. That's when she noticed him. Across the street, just beyond the pool of light cast by the nearest lamp, a man was standing. Not walking, not moving, just standing. His silhouette was clear, tall, thin, and perfectly still. Clara squinted, trying to make out his face, but he was positioned just outside the light. At first, she thought he might just be waiting for for a bus on the other side of the road. But there was no stop there. She looked away, pretending not to notice. But her instincts were buzzing. She glanced again. Now, he was closer, on her side of the street, still not moving. She hadn't heard footsteps. No crossing signal. No cars. Nothing. Just closer. She turned around and started walking away from the bus stop, pretending she'd changed her mind, and decided to walk home. After a few steps, she heard it. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate, behind her. She didn't look back. She walked faster. The footsteps got faster. Clara's breath caught. She broke into a jog, turning right onto a narrow street lined with closed shops and dark windows. She pulled out her phone again, dead. No way to call for help. She turned around. He was there, several meters behind, walking straight toward her. But something was wrong. His movements weren't natural. His arms didn't swing. His head didn't turn. He walked too smoothly, almost gliding, like someone mimicking a human walk. Clara sprinted. She turned another corner, nearly slipping on the wet pavement, and spotted a 24-hour convenience store, lit up like a beacon. She burst through the door, gasping, slamming it behind her. The cashier, startled, asked if she was okay. Clara turned to point behind her, but the man was gone. She never saw him again. But for weeks afterward, she felt like someone was watching her. Sometimes she'd find wet footprints outside her apartment door, even on dry nights. No one believed her, of course, but she never waits at bus stops alone anymore, and she never leaves the house without a portable charger. Story 10. The Invitation. Emma had met Daniel only a few weeks earlier through a mutual friend during a casual meetup at a campus cafe. He was charming, well-spoken, and had this calm intensity that made you want to know more about him. They chatted a few times over text, nothing too deep, and eventually he invited her over to his place one evening to watch a movie and chill. Emma hesitated. It wasn't like her to go over to a guy's apartment alone, especially not one she barely knew. But she told herself it was just a casual visit, that she'd be cautious. She even shared her location with her best friend and promised to check in after an hour. It was already dark when she arrived. Daniel's apartment was in an older part of town, quiet, the kind of neighborhood where the streetlights flickered and the pavement always seemed damp. She knocked and he opened the door with a warm smile. The place was clean, minimalist, maybe too clean, not a single item out of place. No clutter, no personality, almost like no one really lived there. They chatted for a bit on the couch, and he poured her a glass of wine. Emma took a polite sip, then stopped. Something about the taste was off, too bitter. She pretended to drink it while casually setting it down on the coffee table. That's when she noticed it. There were bolts on the inside of the door, 3 of them, and they looked new, industrial, not standard for an apartment like this. Her eyes moved to the windows, thick black, curtains, no light escaping. She asked where the bathroom was, needing a minute to breathe. He pointed down the hall, but as she stood up, he followed her, not close enough to be suspicious, but close enough to be controlling. Inside the bathroom, Emma locked the door and pulled out her phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi. She tried sending a text anyway, in the gut instinct. Not feeling safe. His place feels weird. Please call me in 2 minutes. Suddenly there was a soft knock. You okay in there? Daniel's voice. Calm, too calm. Emma opened the door with a fake smile and said she needed to leave early. Class tomorrow, she explained. He frowned. Not angry, just disappointed. That's too bad, he said. I was really hoping you'd stay longer. As she reached for the door, she heard the metallic click. The bolts. He had locked it. Daniel, what are you doing? She asked, her voice cracking slightly. He didn't answer right away, just stared at her. Then slowly he said, I hate it when people waste my time. Emma's heart pounded. She backed away slowly, trying not to panic. He stepped closer, his hand brushing the edge of the couch, where something sharp glinted briefly. A knife, half hidden under a blanket. Just then, her phone buzzed. The call had gone through. Her friend was calling. Emma screamed, Call the police! Daniel lunged, but she was ready. She threw the wine glass in his direction, buying herself seconds. She ran for the window, tore the curtains open, and screamed again, hoping someone would hear. She didn't care about her phone, her purse, nothing. She just wanted out. That night, Emma was lucky. A neighbor heard her scream. The police arrived minutes later. Daniel was arrested on the spot. In his apartment, they found several hidden cameras, rope, and a drawer filled with IDs, and small objects, trophies, maybe from women who were not as lucky as Emma. She never set foot on that side of town again. And she never blamed herself. She knew now, your instincts are never wrong. You've just heard 10 stories that blur the line between reality and nightmare. Some lived to tell the tale, others and were never the same again. So next time you walk alone, answer the door, or trust a stranger, remember these stories. Because real horror doesn't need a ghost, it just needs one moment.